Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell, and today we're going to answer a letter from somebody whose boyfriend is texting his ex because, quote, he can't think straight when she texts him. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
Nor are we physically sound right now. If you can't obviously tell,
fine.
I've been taken over by... Yeah, Sam's fine. My house finally got hit by some gross cooties, daycare cooties. So I'm sorry you have to listen to me like this. I don't have the flexibility in my schedule to wait until I'm well to record. But anyway, I will make myself sound as not sick as possible for the next couple of episodes. Sam and I are not professionals, so please don't take our advice. No, please take our advice as you see fit. There we go. Please don't take our advice. We're only here to offer a humble musing so we shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. Before we dive into today's letter, it is Monday, so we're going to do a quick check-in topic. The check-in topic today is inspired by a letter from Anonymous Hippopotamus, which I really appreciated as a general rhyme.
It's a great one. Absolutely. Great
Whose
work.
pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from the void. The letter was basically about how the letter writer had broken up with their partner of 3 years and are now ready to date again, and they've been seeing somebody for a short amount of time. The question is ultimately, like, how do we use our past relationships as a reference in our new ones? And how to not, like, repeat patterns or how to break patterns or how to, like, how do you create a blank slate for a new relationship when we are so obviously not blank slates and we're so obviously impacted by our history and our dating history and whatnot. The examples that she gave were like, you know, her ex was really always annoyed that she was always running like 10 minutes late. So she's been really trying to be mindful of lateness in this new relationship. Turns out the new partner like is late too.
Yeah. And he's like, actually, it's fine if you're 10 minutes late because I want to be 10 minutes late.
Yeah. And similarly, like her ex really didn't count running errands as quality time together. So she would often like schedule them separately. But with this new person, he likes like going to the grocery store together like I do and Sam does not.
Yeah, can't relate.
And like she's basically just having some musings of her own about like, what do I bring with me? What do I leave behind? How do I not overthink using my past relationship as a reference for this new one? Yeah, and she doesn't want to like default to someone else's needs or preferences. And she ends the letter by saying, "Is this just what baggage is?"
It is, girl. It is baggage, 100%. And like, you know, I think that the word baggage has like a really negative connotation to it. Like, oh, that person's got too much baggage or whatever. But
yeah, let's just say history.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just history.
We're impacted by our history, period.
100%. And I think that this is probably true of almost everyone who's been in a relationship before, that they learned things in that relationship about how to operate. And then, you know, in new ones, it's like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't working in the same way that it was before. Or, oh, I don't have to pay that much attention to this anymore in the same way that I did in that previous relationship, right? Like there's so many different ways that I think that that can show up. And like, I know that that is absolutely true for me, right? Like I dated a person who was like obsessed with where food went in the pantry. And if I like didn't do it right, he was like, no, it goes over here. The beans have to go next to the corn or whatever. And then I would like also continue to do that in like my marriage where I would be like, oh, I'm sorry, I put this in the wrong place. And Peter would be like, what are you talking about? There's no right place for these things. Like what? There's
beg
just
to
a
differ,
place.
Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get it. Totally understand that like people have things around this, but it was just like, oh
different
yeah.
pantry etiquette.
Absolutely. I was like, oh, I don't have to worry about this. Okay. Interesting. Cool. That's great. Right. And also like Peter and I have had to develop patterns based on things that are important to Peter that like weren't important to previous people in my life, right? Like Peter and I text each other when we're on our way home, which is like not something I've ever done with anyone before, but it's just like a marker of like, hey, I'm getting in my car. And so like know that I'm driving, which is like a source of anxiety for Peter. And also that like I'm going to be home, like expect me home in 20 minutes. And if I'm not home, then like you should like call me or like try and figure out where I am. And like, it's cute, right? And it's like something kind that we do for each other. But like that's a pattern that I had to learn in this relationship that I didn't have in previous relationships. So I think that there's like lots of different examples of ways in which like we can either meet the needs of our partners or we don't have to meet the needs that we're assuming our partners have because those were the needs that a former partner had.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think letting yourself off the hook and just sort of the radical acceptance of like, I am a product of my history. And also at the same time, I can recognize that I'm influenced by the things that happened to me in my past. And I can also be new again, you know, that there's no, you can't fail at that. You know what I mean? And the point isn't to erase the slate perfectly. And the point isn't to show up perfectly for a brand new person who has totally different mannerisms and needs as your ex. You're doing the best that you can right now with the knowledge and experience that you have at this very moment. And I think Sam and I are trying to create a world in which we don't expect people to be baggageless or historyless, you know? And we want people to know that like we can be open to newness. We can be open to something being redefined. Like Sam, who's not a profound texter, you know, texting his partner to say, you know, to do that act of caretaking, to say, I'm on my way home. I'll see you soon. You know what I mean? Like we can become new again in that. And also like, I would just generally say, and it doesn't sound like this from the letter whatsoever, but just zooming out and thinking about the idea of like, how do our past relationships impact our current ones? It's like a little bit of a red flag for me if somebody doesn't want to acknowledge your past at all in your current relationship. Like that's just, we're humans, we're malleable, we're affected by things that happen to us. And at the same time, I have learned in my current marriage that like reflecting on the past and reflecting on how it shaped you is so important, but it only takes you so far. You know what I mean? Like I think at some point in my conversations with my wife, her and I were basically like, I'm so glad to know how you got here. And also you're here now. You can be what you want to be in the moment, if that makes sense. I had to learn that because I'm such a retrospective. I'm such a nostalgic. I love to lick my wounds, you know, and learn from them. And then at a certain point it became just that, like wound licking or navel gazing. Like it didn't do anything for me in the present. Like it wasn't helping me shape who I was by acknowledging again and again and again and again why I am the way I am because of my past, if that makes sense.
I think that this, you know, element of self-awareness is really important. And the recognition that like we are capable of doing and trying new things is, I think, also important, right? Like we can, we may have baggage, right? We may have learned things in previous relationship. We may be carrying stuff that has impacted us negatively or positively from our partners. And we also have the capacity to go beyond just like, oh yeah, this is a pattern that I have, into this is a pattern that I have and I'm in a new relationship. I'm starting, you know, I'm trying to start from scratch with this person. So I have the capacity to either change that pattern, or if I'm having a hard time changing that pattern, find tools and resources to help me figure out how to do that. Right. And I think that is the difference between like having baggage and allowing it to like totally like smother a current relationship versus like having an understandable history and patterns of thought and behavior and emotion that are, you know, maybe not as justified in the current relationship. And then recognizing that like, oh, I have some learning and growing to do, or I'm going to have to understand new ways of being with this new person that I think is really helpful. Right. And I think that there's like a difference between those two things that is probably an important thing to recognize as you're entering into a new relationship with somebody who's going to have new stuff that you're going to have to sort of navigate together.
Yeah. And you can bring your own stuff. Like if you don't want to go grocery shopping as a quality time thing, that's really okay. You know,
It is. Absolutely. Right. And you don't have to because it's stupid.
Samuel, don't be a hater.
I hate it. I just want to get out of the grocery store as quickly as possible.
Bean aisle, let me tell you.
No. Oh my God. I'm just imagining me trying to like plow through the grocery store, get it done as quickly as possible, and like walking in on you two making out in the bean aisle and being like, why are we doing this, friends? Like this is not a place for romance. This is a place for efficiency.
Yeah, but you can do both. But I get it though. Now that I'm a mom, grocery shopping efficiency is like a big part of that.
Yeah.
Back when I was like a single hot thing.
Yeah, you were like,
Well,
oh my God,
or
let's
like,
hold hands walking down this aisle as
let's giggle
slowly
at
as
these
possible.
noodles or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone's
All right,
like, I
let's
just
get
need
into
to feed
today's
my
letter.
fucking family. What are you doing?
Well, I also know the longer I stay there with her, the more she's going to be like, I want this. Look at this cereal.
Oh, also, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's get into
Okay.
today's letter.
Let's do it. All right, so this letter comes from the new girlfriend, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing from the void. I am a 21-year-old woman who got my heart broken for the first time when I was 17, and I have been healing and single since then, until April of this year. I'll call him B. He's 24. We've been dating for about 6 months. B had just gotten out of a toxic and abusive 7-year relationship with his ex-girlfriend G when we met. He was only single for about 5 months. We talked about our past relationships before we started dating. We started dating only about a month after we met. I was scared that we rushed things in the beginning, but our relationship had been nothing but fun and healing on my end. Until June, when I got a message from G's now on again, off again boyfriend. This is the current boyfriend of the ex-girlfriend of our letter writer's new boyfriend.
Yeah.
If that
there's
is
three,
like
there's the cast of characters.
there's a cast of characters with all
It's
initials.
the new girlfriend, the old girlfriend, the boyfriend,
Right.
the letter writer's boyfriend, who is the ex of the old girlfriend. I'm making it,
You're making it
worse.
more confusing.
I'm making it worse.
So the current boyfriend of the letter writer's boyfriend's ex-girlfriend texted the letter writer and said, hey, I found these text messages on her phone from your boyfriend from a fake Instagram account. At first, I was skeptical because there was a lot of drama with the three of them before the breakup, so I thought it was just more drama and I didn't want to believe it. I asked B, my boyfriend, about it, and he confessed and explained that he was, quote, just checking up on her. He apologized and deleted his fake Instagram account and blocked her after our convo, and he said he wouldn't text her anymore. About a month later, B let me know that his ex-girlfriend came to his job and that they talked. I was a little bit upset, but brushed that off after a conversation as well. It's now November, the 1-year mark of when they broke up, and I woke up a few days ago after having a bad dream of my boyfriend and his ex talking. I've never gone through his phone before, but that morning I had a gut feeling telling me to look. I found messages between them, and I read through them. In the messages, the ex was saying things like, I held on to hope of getting back together for so long. And my boyfriend was talking about how, quote, they have had lots of growth to do, but getting back together is not out of the options for sure. My boyfriend was talking about, they both sent pictures back and forth when they were together, saying things like, I couldn't let these go. They also sent a few pictures of themselves. At one point, my boyfriend sent a message saying, I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you, but I gotta go take a quick shower and take care of something that you may or may not have caused. Winky emoji face.
It's a boner.
It's a boner, absolutely. Which to me seemed like he was going to jerk off to the pictures that she sent, especially because of the emoji. That's 100% what he was referring to. That is a perfect inference. From reading the messages, I also found out
You could
that
be an English major.
you absolutely could. From reading the messages, I also found out that the ex had gone to boyfriend's work again to pick up her passport that he found in his car a few months earlier. After finding the messages, we had a long talk, and he confessed to me that when she comes back into his life, he loses self-control and can't think straight, but says that he is sure that he wants to be with me and not her, and said that he would never let this happen again. We haven't talked about it since that day, but lately it's been on my mind. I keep asking myself questions like, how many times have they texted like this and I haven't found out? And does he actually want to be with me, or am I filling a void until he can get back with her? I apologize for the long message, and there are lots of details, even more than I included. I'm just kind of confused at the moment. Thank you for reading my letter. I would greatly appreciate any advice you might have for me in this situation, as I've never been in one like this before.
Oh, my darling. Thank you so much for writing and trusting us with this letter. I'm excited to answer it because, I don't know, maybe it's my weakened immune system, but I feel particularly emboldened that, you know, I'm protective of you. I don't want you to waste your time. And this is like a sticky, painful, confusing situation that's not that sticky and confusing for us as the outsiders. So I'm sorry you're going through this. I'm sorry you had to see all that. And I'm sorry that you are going to have to be the one to tell your boyfriend to basically like shit or get off the pot, or, stop wasting your time. Sam said something that I think is so articulate earlier before we press record, which is like, learn this lesson now in your 20s, that this person is not in it with you the way you want them to be in it. And I know that's hard to hear. I'm coming out, I don't have a lot of energy because of this stupid cold. So I'm coming out the gates really strong. So please know we have sympathy and empathy for you. We even have empathy for your boyfriend because he's obviously really feeling emotionally vulnerable and confused with this person from his past. But we're going to get into all this and more. But first we have to take a very quick break.
All right, everyone. Welcome back. Yes, like Sierra said, I think I'm also coming into this letter with a lot of like big sibling energy, where I just am like, hey, friend, we need to talk about this. And I think it's only because I think I have been here before, right? I have been literally 21 years old dating somebody who is like not over his ex. Like I like feel very, very much like, ooh, I remember how shitty this felt, and also how confused I was because
so confusing.
Absolutely,
because you don't want to let go of a good thing, but it feels like they're half in and half out. But they are half in.
Absolutely,
they keep telling you that they're here.
And this is like, it sounds like this is like your second big relationship, and so there's like a lot of like, oh, this person is really important to you, and absolutely, I think despite what he's doing, I trust that he's like a good person, right? And that there are reasons why you're in relationship with him, right? Like I 100% believe that, because my guess is that outside of this, whatever this thing is, like he is a good person for you, right? And is kind and funny and all of the things that you might be looking for in a partner. And I also just want to name that like what he is doing in this situation, these messages that he's sending to his ex are like not appropriate messages to be sending to an ex. And the feeling that you're feeling of like, wait a minute, am I just filling a void? Am I, a second choice in this relationship, right? Like what's happening here are feelings that you should be paying attention to, right? They're not things that you should write off because you're being ridiculous or irrational or you're making too much of too little, right? Like it's really understandable and justifiable that you would feel like the second choice when this person is texting his ex and saying things like, I couldn't let this go. There's always a possibility that the two of us will wind up back together after we've done learning and growing. 'Cause like, to me, that statement, like, there's always a chance we could come back together after learning and growing. I would be like, wait, so am I just the learning and growing piece of this? Like, am I the lesson you need to learn so that you can be a better partner to this person that you actually want to be with? Like that, the language that he's using is like, it's demeaning to you. Like that's the long and short of it. Like it's undermining you as a person. It's undermining your relationship. And I don't think that it's cool. And I'll also name like the fact that he feels like he loses control when his ex texts him. I get it. Like, I totally get it. Like, I have been that person too, right? Like, I have also been the like, oh God, this person's texting me again. I don't know any pattern with this person besides toxicity, right? Like, I don't know any pattern with this person besides doing things that are outside of my values. Like, that's the only way I know how to do it. And so, like, I totally get, I can, like, it's so funny because I'm reading this letter and I'm like, been there and also been there, you know, like on both sides of this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a lot of empathy for your boyfriend in this situation, but that doesn't make it a safe place for you to invest your energy unless things truly change and are committed to change on his end. And it just doesn't seem like he has that right now. And I'm not villainizing that at all. Like, you're young, it's confusing. Well, relationships are confusing at any age, but like, especially when you're undoing, like Sam says, like patterns of toxicity, codependency, when you're trying to, like, let me even say this. I don't actually care if somebody still has feelings for someone and they start to date again, because sometimes we have to like put ourselves out there in order to cut those cords, in order to see what we're leaving and why we're leaving it. And like, humans need other humans, and we use humans as distractions. We use humans as lessons. Like, it's just a part of our weird human nature. So I don't even care that he started dating you before he was like fully ready, but he needs to recognize that his inability to control himself around this person is creating a hostile, unhealthy dating relationship for you guys. And so what Sam and I are saying is like, you can see that clearly. We don't need him to tell you anything else. He might be able to convince you that he's going to change his behavior and he's fully committed and he wants to be here. And that's all fine and good. But what I want you to know is that you have enough right now to make a really informed decision about whether this is worth your energy right now or not. And is it painful? Yes. Is it heartbreaking? Yes. Is it annoying and frustrating and confusing? It's all of those things. Are you going to feel like you're walking away from a good thing? Yes. Yes. But the good thing's only got one foot in the door. The good thing is, and we stick around for people to learn lessons all the time. So I wouldn't put it past you, or I wouldn't judge you for staying. I just want you to know, like, none of this sounds good to Sam and I, right? None of this sounds like a safe place for you, the person we're trying to champion right now. And there are relationships out there. Like, this is one of the foundations of our podcast, right? That there are relationships out there that don't make you work so hard, or don't make you wait, or don't make you be a lesson, or don't make you usher your partner into a new iteration of himself where he can be fully present. Like, I know we are all capable of doing that. And there are people out there that won't ask this of us. Do you know what I mean?
And I think, if you are going to choose to stay with this person, I think that he does need to take accountability for how much this hurt you, right? Like, so much, I think a lot of your letter for me, which again, this is like totally understandable, is this kind of like questioning of, am I making too big of a deal out of this? Like, is this something that is bad enough that like this is kind of rupturing? Like, oh, I'm having these feelings of like wondering if he's texting her again. And it's like, yeah, of course you are. Why wouldn't you? Because he proved that he's been doing that for the last however many months. Like, yeah, you're seeing a pattern and you're like, I wonder if the pattern's continuing. Of course. Why wouldn't you be feeling that way? And I think, like, Esther Perel talks about this on her podcast, right? Like, the things that need to happen in order for folks to come back from infidelity, which is what this is, right? Like, that's what happened here. Like, these messages were inappropriate and they were out of the bounds of your relationship, is that the person who has caused the harm needs to take full accountability for the pain that they have caused the other person. And they need to not diminish the other people's feelings by either A, saying it's never going to happen again, so stop worrying about it, or B, saying you're making too big of a deal out of this, right? Like, it's not what you think it was. And that's an understandable way that people come into trying to repair harm, because they don't want to know, they don't want to think of themselves as being bad people who did a bad thing, right? Like, so they want to diminish it, or they want to say, like, I'm not like that. I'm actually a good person. You'll see, right? They actually need to take accountability for the fact that they have caused harm to the other person. And without that, it's impossible for any sort of reconciliation to happen because the person who's been harmed can't move past the hurt because the hurt hasn't been seen and hasn't been held. It hasn't been acknowledged. It's just been tamped down. So if you're going to move forward with this person, you two need to talk more about how this felt for you and what it means for you. And he's going to have to take ownership over the fact that it happened. And then once that happens, you are going to have to trust him, right? Like that's the long and short of it. Like if you are going to move on from this and you're going to move into another iteration of your relationship, he has to take full accountability, and you can't keep doing things where you're like, prove to me that you are not doing this anymore. Right. Like that
right, you
is
have to
not
commit
actually
to
going
trusting him too.
Absolutely. Right. But I know it's going to be really hard for you to trust him if he doesn't acknowledge that this was a big deal and that it hurt you and your relationship deeply, right? It's going to be impossible for you to trust him because why would you if he's not even taking accountability for the harm that he's already caused?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a perfect place to end it. We know this is tricky. We know that we were like pretty on the nose with all of our advice. So like, I'm sorry if this comes off as really harsh. We just really want to root for you and be your, help be a little bit of a protector during this really emotional time.
Definitely.
And I hope some of this resonates with you, if not all of it.
Yeah, for sure. If it's not clear, we are telling you all of this because we love you deeply and we just want you to be in a relationship that's going to be with somebody who sees you for you and wants to be with you because you are wonderful and amazing and awesome and somebody worth being all in for. So
yes, that's it.
Thank you so much for writing to us, and we hope that this helps. All right, friends, thank you so much for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get access to those weekly bonus episodes, as well as those office hours. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice. Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and his music. And remember, you don't have to settle for this. You don't have to settle for feeling like you're a lesson or a second choice or feeling like somebody isn't as committed as you are. You don't have to settle for that. And it's not about being inhumane. It's not about not having empathy. You can have empathy for them and yourself at the same time. You don't deserve this. You deserve somebody who's all in right now. And they're out there. They're out there ready for you. And if all else fails, just break up.